come to my attention that I've never ever talked about the farm, the homestead, the garden, whatever you want to call it, really taking its grips on you and making you feel like you just can't leave. Well, let's talk about that, because we're going to be going out of town, and it is the absolute worst possible time for us to go out of town. And I do it every year. This is my last year I'm doing it because it is stressful. But let's try to ease everybody's mind. So it doesn't matter what time of year you're leaving, this will help you get through that anxiety of leaving your garden behind. Gotta say, the garden produces. So we're in the greenhouse, and check that out. So I think this is going to be bolting soon, so we're going to go ahead and harvest it before we go out of town. It's super windy outside, so if I've got to take you out there, I'm going to try and dance around the wind. But that's the first thing we do before we go out of town, is we harvest everything that we can. And a lot of times, like depending on how we're getting there, typically we don't fly, we just drive places. We'll take our produce with us. If we're going to see family, we'll take them. Everybody appreciates it. But this time of year especially, it can be really tricky because it could invariably bolt while you're gone. I mean, we're going to be gone for probably, I don't know, 4 days or so. But it's gonna, it's good. The temperature is getting to where it's rising more and more, and that could absolutely cause things to bolt. So we don't want to waste all of this work because we made the terrible decision to go out of town this time of year. So the first thing we do is we go ahead and we harvest what we can, as much as we can, and anything that looks like it wants to bolt, we harvest. Now, I like to do a couple other things just in case, and it really works out the timing wise for everything. To walk out in the garden bed, like this bed's pretty good. It's actually right about harvesting time. We probably won't harvest these rutabagas until we get back from our trip. But if you walk through other parts of the garden, there are absolutely things that could be fertilized right now. So we could put another dose of fertilizer in our potato bed. We're getting pretty close to not being able to get in there anymore, so I think we need to give it one more dose of fertilizer down in there before we can't really touch it anymore. And the same goes across the board. Our broccolis out here are getting very large. These are some of the biggest broccolis I've ever grown. They just look absolutely amazing. But you can see we're gonna have to eat this tonight. And if you ever get a broccoli like this that's starting to bolt, you can catch it. This is really good to grow into eggs, to the point of where we don't mind it because they chop up really good and go in. So we can add that, but across the board, we want to go in and get as much as we can out of our garden beds. Put a dose of fertilizer down. I use organic granular fertilizer, and I like to go ahead and just put a nice dose down. It just makes me feel better, makes me feel like the garden's working while we're gone and continuing on in that motion. So we'll keep that going, and we'll keep it pushing in the right direction, because just because you leave doesn't mean it stops. But again, like I get this feeling of like I just can't leave. We've got, basically at this point, and it's crazy to think about, we're on like a small working farm at this point, between the 8 beehives we have here, the 11 chickens and the 11 garden beds and the greenhouse and all that. It can be a lot. So you just really want to make sure that you can keep up with it. If you have automation in your garden, then you can do multiple things at once. So automation, what that basically means is we have our waters on timers. So everything will get watered while we leave. But even still, mistakes happen. Really want to wake up in the middle of the night while you're gone on vacation or doing whatever it is and having a good time, be like, crap, I hope the garden's getting watered. We want to be able to stay on top of it, and adding a timer into the mix can do it, but you can't just set it and forget it. Or you can, but I don't like to do that. I like to take a little bit different approach. You can see we have all drip timer or drip irrigation installed. So what I like to do is I come out and I will go ahead the day before and I will ensure that it gets a good deep watering. Water it for quite a while actually. I probably, drip irrigation is a little bit different than a sprinkler. So what we'll do is we'll water it for 2 hours and just make sure that ground is real saturated. And we'll do that the day before we go out of town. And then we set our timers to go off for about This time of year, well, because of the crops we're growing right now, they're very water hungry. So we'll set them to go off every other day. And what that'll do, and it depends on the temperature. So if it's cooler, you don't have to do as much. The most we ever go in between is 3 to 4 days. But while we're gone, we want to make sure, because if there is an accident, at least we know that there was another watering in place. So we can do that. Now the water will help, the extra water will help that fertilizer break down even faster. And then on top of that, you're going to have warmer temperatures right now, because I'm in coastal North Carolina. Right now, today my temperature is 74 degrees, and then tomorrow the high is going to be 63. The low tonight is 62, and tomorrow it's going to be 38. So you can see it's not really all that hot. So we're going to get to keep a lot of that juice, all that water in the soil, and that's going to help that those warm temperatures, and the water will help the fertilizer break down faster. So while we're gone, that fertilizer is going to be halfway done water or breaking down, because it takes 2 weeks for organic granular fertilizer to break down and start to feed your plants in a decent springtime temperature, summertime, anything like that. So we'll do that, but that helps keep everything moving in the right direction. Now, if you automate it at the same time and you want to be risky, which I typically do, is I will also go ahead and plant. I came out the other day and planted this little tomato, just put something in the ground, see what we can get. I always like to test a little bit out in the greenhouse. I don't want to fully plant it for summer because it gets so hot. But this, I believe, was a cherry tomato. I forgot now, but it should give us a earlier harvest. But you know, a couple weeks on either side is not really that big a deal. We just want to see what it can do. But after Tuesday, after the next couple days, the temperature is going to go back up, and we should be done with our really cool temperatures at this point. So stuff like this broccoli is finishing up. You know, we've got another head. This head's nice and tight right now, so this is good. This is exactly what we want. So it's all going in the right direction. If we can brave the wind for a second and come out here, we can see that we've moved our tomatoes from the greenhouse, put them out in the garden bed. We just set them out here. But at the same time, I've got all of these flowers here. I've got all of these tomatoes, and we're gonna go ahead and start planting these because we have the drip irrigation, we have it intact, we have rain coming. That's a big thing too. Know what your weather is going to be while you're gone. What are your chances of rain? How's that going to help you? How can you use it to your advantage? So we know that we're going to get some good dousing rain here, supposedly. Every time they say that, we get not that much, but look, beggars can't be choosers, right? So we'll go ahead and plant what we can. So we plan to plant this bed over here, and we may actually go ahead and plant these two beds as well. I'm not 100% sure. It just comes down to how much time I have, but we're aiming to get these beds planted, and then we are going to direct sow some melons into this bed. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I wasn't really going to save these cabbages, but they're actually starting to head. So if we direct sow our melons, let's say my goal here is to put a melon on this side and a melon on this side, and then a melon here and a melon there, and that's really about it in this bed. We want to give it plenty of space so we can leave these cabbages in at the same time, let them finish out, harvest them, bada bing, bada boom, is done. So that's the goal here. And so by direct sowing, remember we did that video about timing and direct sowing, that it will take time for those seeds to germinate, but by the time we get back, we don't have to sit there and wait and watch and do all that. We will be able to see right away, hey, did the seeds germinate? How'd that go? Perfect, let's do this. You know, so there's all kinds of options we can do to really keep the garden moving in the right direction, because the last thing I want to do is feel like I'm pinned down here all the time. Now, stuff like our chickens and whatnot, if we go away for a day or two, we will lock the chickens up in the coop and just leave them in there. We'll give them extra food and water. It's not the best in the world, but it kind of relieves the pressure off of people around us, because otherwise what we do is, because we lock them up at night because of the raccoon pressure, we'll have somebody come out and check on the chickens. We'll have them open them up in the morning and shut them down at night. That's really about it. And we'll just stock them up with as much food and water as possible. We'll put extra containers in there and stuff like that, and they'll be just fine. We haven't had any major issues at all with that. So, you know, and then if you come out to our bees over here, so now the wind's blowing, it's like 35 miles an hour, it's ridiculous. The bees, we're gonna do a solid inspection on them beforehand and then just let them ride, you know. We usually, this time of year, we're going in every 7 days, and then 7 to 10 days. And then after that, once the honey flow starts, which should be like any day now if it's not already starting, I have to go in this week and check, then we'll check it every 5 days. So we wanna make sure that while you do have the freedom to walk away and you do have these tools available to you, we still take the chance and we'll go through and we'll pre-prepare ourselves to go through everything. And even though we have all these tools available, we still sometimes have to stop what we're doing. Like for me in the honey, like if all my bees swarm, I'm in trouble. So we will take time, especially during the honey flow, and say, hey, you know what? We're not going to go anywhere. And it's the same, we need to do that because it's such a busy season right now. I know a lot of you are feeling the pressure. You know, it's April, it's cold, it was cold, it's warming up, people are getting out planting, and we really want to stay on top of it. But if you know your routine in your garden, you know how often you water, you've got solid food down, there's no major issue like pests or something. Which another good thing to do as well is if you have pests, treat for them just before you go. That way the garden sits and it does anything. So leading up to that exit of your area for you leaving, what I do is I'll do a solid pest inspection. If I see something, I'll hand pick everything I can, and then I'll come through and I'll do a treatment right before we leave. And if you've noticed it coming up in the process like the week before, then it's best to do a treatment then and then come back right before you leave and do another treatment, and then that way you're really getting on top of your pests. Came out here today and the garden looks great, but then I've got this one plant here that's just not doing great, and I just saw this now and I can't figure it out. So I'm gonna have to do my think method and think, is it timing? No, it's not. You know, is it hydration? I don't think it's hydration because everything else is well hydrated. I don't see any other issues rising. You know, is it nutrition? I doubt it because we haven't really fed anything, so it wouldn't be the overfeeding that we have been guilty of. It wouldn't be underfeeding. So what I'm thinking of, it's a pest or a disease. Oh boy, last thing I need is a disease in my garden right before. So I have a multiple options. If it is hydration, the only way to fix that is to give it a solid watering. If that plant doesn't bounce back, I'm gonna pull it. Because the last thing I wanna do is come back and find all of this bed dead because some disease spread while I was gone. We'll go ahead and, like I said, we'll water this bed, see if it comes back. If it doesn't, we'll give it a day or two, boom, it'll be gone. So that way that's not spreading all the way around. Look at there, one of my bees is in that cabbage. So there's nothing to pollinate, so she must be getting some water. Over here, and this Napa cabbage is gonna be ready to harvest real soon, but you can see at this point we're starting to get a little bit of damage on these leaves. I'm not overly concerned about it because honestly in about a week this will be harvested. So we're just gonna let that one ride, but we need to come down the line and look at the rest of them and see what's going on. And I don't see any major issues unfolding right now. So that's good. That means that we're going in the right direction. Everything is nice and healthy and we don't really need to treat anything, but we're gonna keep our eye on it. So barring an animal getting in your bed and digging it up, which I mean, truth be told, the damage is gonna be done. You know, if a raccoon comes into my bed, which is highly possible it could do, and tear it up, you know, the worst thing it's gonna do is it's going to chew up the water line. And then, well, first of all, it's gonna dig up the bed and kill everything if it does, which is what it is. But as far as lasting damage after that, it chew a water line, the water line leaks, and then the water will come on and we'll lose a lot of water. If you're just running a garden, you don't really have to have anything special, anybody come by and look at it or anything like that. I did go out of town when I first started gardening. I went out of town and I had a friend come by and I was growing a spaghetti squash. And I told him, I said, look, if you come by, just check stuff. I didn't really know what was going on, didn't know what would be needed. And I said, if you see anything you want, take it. Well, I had one spaghetti squash, and I was looking at it, I was like, I'm going to pull this right when I get back and eat it. I had never grown it before. Wouldn't you know, my man pulled it, ate it, said it was delicious, and then I didn't get another one off that plant. You learn your lesson, right? So, you know, it can be non-beneficial to have somebody come and look over your garden. But if I had a garden full of tomatoes and cucumbers and I was leaving for a week, I would just harvest every single thing on there that was even remotely close and bring it inside, and then over that week that plant would reproduce and do that. If you leave those like green tomatoes on, they can overripe, fall, then you waste your produce, you know. And really what that can end up doing is inviting rats and stuff like that to get in your garden, because these gardens are basically magnets for it, so you got to be very careful. But don't let your garden hold you back. Do what you got to do. Just take the certain steps. You know, a $30 timer goes a long way. And pro tip with timers, the simpler, the better.